Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of India Foundation Facebook interview series, our joint initiative to identify and celebrate women achievers in the field of cybersecurity. Today we have with us Ms. Rema Rajeshwari, a senior IPS officer from the 2009 batch who's currently posted in Telangana. As we speak, Ms. Rajeshwari has got posted as the District Police Chief of the Nalagonda district. Thank you for speaking to us, Rema ji, and let me start by congratulating you for the new responsibility.
Thank you, Deeksha. That was very nice. I'm grateful for this opportunity that India Foundation has given me, and I hope we can have an interesting conversation today.
Before we have a substantive conversation around issues of cybersecurity, I want to start our discussion by understanding your journey so far. How did you first get exposed to issues of cybersecurity in your professional life?
Well, I would say it was primarily two phases. The first one was somewhere around 2015-16 when we had to deal with a lot of child sexual abuses. So when we would actually get deeper into the investigation, every time we realized that every crime had something to do with technology, be it social media exposure of the children who are victims of sexual violence, be it offline or online, or any other platforms, any other mediums. So we had to do something to create awareness among these children who have unlimited access to technology but absolutely no digital education about how to be in it. And around that point I was posted in a rural district, and I don't think we had enough resources at that point to reach out to every kid who lives in that district to make them aware of the pitfalls awaiting them in the dark space of digital technology. So on a very small scale, we started a campaign called Balyaniki Raksha. The aim was to reach out to all the children through educational institutions and to create awareness as an educative model. So we came up with skits, we came up with some small movies to teach them about good touch and bad touch, and to be how to be safe online. Multiple stakeholders were involved. For example, teachers, who are the primary responders to any kind of crisis any kid gets into, and parents, and obviously the extended community members. So this was my first experience with children getting exposed to the violent part of digital technology. The second phase, I would say, was in the first half of 2018, when we had to deal with mob lynching incidents, which primarily was an outcome of digital technology. If you remember, around 2018 and 19, there were multiple mob lynching incidents in different parts of the country because there were a couple of violent videos, with malicious content, which was really, making people go, all panicky, and they some of them really engaged in large scale violent incidents, and a couple of lives were lost. If I remember correctly, some 50 odd people died in different mob violence incidents. So this was a phase where we had to look at it from a different perspective, where like that sense of anonymity a person gets while being online, or that sense of anonymity a person gets while being part of a mob, because they saw one malicious video which says that, okay, this particular section of the community is a threat to you, or this particular person is probably out there to kidnap your kid. All kinds of child kidnapping rumors and organ harvesting gang rumors. So all these aspects had to be looked into. So I think in both these phases, my biggest learning was that the pace at which we are moving ahead with digital technology, we need to keep up in terms of educating our people also. So we are lacking a lot in terms of imparting digital literacy to our people, and when it comes to law enforcement challenges, having direct interface with digital technology, this is our most important challenge.
You spoke of technology being the center point around a lot of child crimes that you've come across in your professional journey. You spoke of digital awareness and the need for digital literacy. How has your academic background in computer sciences given you a head start in dealing with such situations or in understanding the nature of cybercrime?
Well, I definitely have an advantage because I can understand the technical part of it. You see, like today, the biggest challenge the Indian law enforcement officers face is that the cyber crimes are on the rise. But we don't have the required skilled manpower. There is a huge skill gap when it comes to police officers who are really good at dealing with cyber crimes. So we make a lot of efforts in terms of training, the manpower, make them good at cybercrime investigation, but it's a long way to go. Not everybody comes with a technology background, educational background these days. So for me personally, I think my master's in computer science degree definitely helped in understanding that gap and preparing my team to tackle cybercrime issues in my own district. And I'm in a better position to understand the issue so that we are able to come up with required interventions there. Yeah.
Ma'am, your career has also coincided with the explosive rise of internet in the country. There's a huge evolution of IT and internet. How do you juxtapose that with the evolution of crime and policing in the country? With the rising sophistication of technology, has there been an equal rise in the sophistication of crime and policing as well?
Absolutely. See, I call it the 3S problem. Okay, so we have a 3S problem when it comes to the this really abnormal rise in cybercrime in the country. Size, scale, and sophistication. So you have to deal with the sheer size of the cases which are reported on a daily basis, reported and also not reported. Not necessarily everybody goes to the police station or reach out to the the cybercrime portal to report a cybercrime violation. Second is the scale, the scale at which we have to deal with a problem. Third is the sophistication, especially when it comes to the misinformation campaigns. It is really, I mean, sometimes like I really wonder how people come up with these kind of malicious content, which can create such a huge unrest among peaceful communities. That disruption it causes. So unless we have proper strategies to address these three issues, the size, the scale, and the sophistication with which the so-called actors, the antisocial actors, use technology to create disruption, I don't think we will be able to address the issue holistically. So this is the bigger challenge for us today. So today, I think exactly 2 or 3 days ago, there was a consultative committee of the Ministry of Home Affairs, which is chaired by the Honorable Home Minister of India, Mr. Amit Shah. They have been working diligently on the national strategy on cybercrime. I think that is going to be one of the most important step in our country in the way we are going to address the cybercrime issues, because even today we don't have a centralized apex body which will put accountability on different actors when it comes to cyber threats, cyber crimes, and different kinds of threats which come out of use of digital technology. So once we have this formalized strategy in place, I think we will have more power and more resources and manpower to deal with this issue.
You spoke of the 3 S's, the size, the scale, and the sophistication. The role of all these 3 has become even more prominent with the amplification of the role of internet, considering the COVID pandemic that the world is currently going through. Not just individuals, not just people as individuals, but lives of corporations, organizations, and institutions has moved to virtual spaces. The penetration of our digital, the density of our digital imprints has gone up manyfold. In your assessment, how much of this is going to be a permanent feature going ahead?
Well, I guess it's pretty much going to stay. I think organizations, institutions, and people at large have finally realized that this is probably one of the most eco-friendly, sustainable model, the work from home model. So many organizations are really, they have commissioned studies to understand the model to make it, kind of semi-permanent. So with this, that brings us to the second part of your question, the challenges, right? See, especially in a post-pandemic world, when pretty much everybody is connected to technology, right? So the dependence, the over dependence on cloud platforms have gone up. The over dependence of having to manage a huge volume of data and regulations, okay, and exposure of your vulnerabilities in such a massive digital space. And now if you look at how this is being managed, everything is individualistic. There is no collective effort, there is no common code as to how we are going to deal with this issue, right? So now I hear different institutions talking about, for example, something that really caught my attention recently is that of the zero trust framework. Now big corporations, especially the big tech companies and even some of the governments, I think US government is talking about it, some of the policy makers in our own country are also looking at it. A zero trust framework is, it's I mean, if you want me to like define it like in very simple terms, you don't trust anybody, who is there in the tech space. Anything that is happening in the tech space, unless it is verified, unless the user is authenticated, it is not a verifiable source. So basically, you move ahead with this concept of zero trust. You don't want to trust unless it is authenticated. It's like the two-factor verification that we have. It's like the OTP systems that we have in our day-to-day lives, when we have the tech interface. So when you have frameworks like this, at least we know that the platform that I'm using or the type of technology that I'm using, you have that sense of security, that confidence that it is safe for me to be there. I don't want to be on my mobile phone, or I don't want to be like watching Netflix or doing something on Facebook with that fear in the back of my mind that like I'm not safe. Okay, that it is our responsibility to give that sense of safety and security to people who are slowly moving from the physical space to the digital space. That's a need of the hour, and there are many efforts also. And about the volume that you mentioned, I read somewhere that from 2019 to 2020, there was a 300% increase in the number of digital footprints, right? So you have to understand that, you see, when we talk about regular, tech-enabled business models, or our e-commerce, or the way we use technology for our day-to-day activities, you also have to look at the flip side of it, which is the crime landscape. Okay, you take a closer look at the crime landscape, how it is evolving in the country or in the in the world. We are slowly moving from the physical space to the digital space. Earlier, back in those days, like when we were in schools and all, eve teasing was a big problem. Like, as a girl, you just can't go, to the bus station or to a, public space, you will be eve teased. Okay. So now this eve teasing has transformed into cyber stalking, cyber harassment. Then back in those days, you could see, who is the person who is trying to, make you unsafe in a public space. Today, that sense of anonymity that person has, he can use multiple platforms, he can use multiple channels to reach out to a potential victim to harass her or him. It can be a male also who gets, victimized by the, pitfalls of digital technology. So this transition, we have to be extremely mindful of. This transition from the physical space, the criminals who are slowly moving from the physical space to the digital space. So unless we come up with policies and strategies to address this transition period, I don't think we'll be able to address the issue completely.
Ma'am, I'm glad you brought up the point around transition from the physical space to the virtual space, because from what we see in the last few years, there have been multiple attempts by the government also to make the virtual space a safe space. For example, we have the Personal Data Protection Bill that's coming up. We have the amendments to the IT Act. We have the government trying to bring in a code of ethics for digital media and social media intermediaries. So in a way, the regulatory space around the virtual realm of things is evolving. But as a practitioner, where do you stand on this debate between good laws or good implementation? In your opinion, where does the devil lie in having, are we lacking in our laws, or are we lacking in our implementation?
See, I personally feel that the tech oriented laws should not be compared with the conventional laws, because tech is a different ball game altogether, right? Tech is something which is evolving. It's very dynamic. It's not the case with the conventional crimes. Let's talk about the conventional crimes and the cyber crimes. Let's just take a very minor example of a traffic violation. Why do we have laws? You have a car, you're out on the road, you are supposed to have a license, you're supposed to follow the lane discipline, you're supposed to, if you're riding a motorcycle, you're supposed to wear a helmet for your safety and for the safety of your fellow passengers, right? So this is the primary intention behind having a law, a conventional law, right? And so it's pretty clear. Let's not get into that implementation debate, because it's pretty vast. But yes, there are some implementation bottlenecks everywhere. But then when it comes to cyber laws, okay, when it comes to the laws which handle with the digital based crime, when you have a ecosystem which is evolving like every day, like today you have one type of new age crime which is based on digital technology, and tomorrow you have a completely different set of a crime. So in these scenario, I don't think the question of implementation comes at all. Here the only question is whether we have adequate laws or not. Once we have the laws in place, I don't think there is any question about implementation there at all. Today the problem is that we don't have adequate legal framework, because every time we talk about a legal framework, unfortunately the conversation gets diverted or distracted towards the ethical concerns, which is very unfortunate, because in the process we miss out on the most important core aspect of the issue, which is keeping us all safe online, right? So I think there is no way we can compare the cyber laws with the conventional laws. Implementation is the need of the hour, and the only challenge that I personally see as a practitioner is that we need to do a lot of cyber upskilling. Okay, for you to implement that law in letter and spirit, to make it meaningful, you need to have a skilled manpower. So I think the focus should shift from these debates to upgradation of skilling for our officers.
Ma'am, you very rightly said that what we need is cyber upscaling, maybe a skilled manpower force that can attend to the need of the hour. In 2014, the Prime Minister coined an acronym for SMART policing. It stood for smart but sensitive, modern and mobile, alert and accountable, reliable and responsive, techno-savvy and trained, which he elaborated to be his vision for the role of police going ahead. How do you think the police has kept up pace in keeping up with the new paradigm?
Well, that has actually revolutionized the way the cops are behaving these days. See, the Honorable Prime Minister called for a dedicated effort to prepare the police officers for the new world, a new world where every person has a right to seek a fair and just way of dealing with things, right? And the sensitization of the force, I would say many police organizations are already coming up with training activities to sensitize the force. At least I know in my state, since last 4 years, there have been many efforts, and every new recruit who enters the police force mandatorily undergoes this sensitivity training. And also on the job also, many of the police leaders, they go out of the way to prepare their forces, to be more sensitive and empathetic towards the citizens who try to approach them. One very important thing that I'd like to flag here is that, see, there is a concept called social audit. Okay, usually it is used in a very economic scenario, right? People use the word social audit for that, to audit like how money is spent. I'm not an expert on that. I personally feel that internet, or rather social media, is actually acting as a social audit system for the police officers. You see, today, if one traffic constable slaps a passenger, it goes viral within a fraction of a second. There is public scrutiny of your actions. Your behavior is always watched. Earlier, somebody would watch it, but they wouldn't have the courage to report it. So your act which is not so friendly towards a citizen, goes unpunished. It's not the case today. Today, every day you get into any social media platform, you come across, different issues where the police is probably, engaging in misuse of power, abuse of power, or probably like excessive use of force, and you just simply cannot go unpunished because people are watching. So that power to control somebody from resorting to overuse of power is slowly shifting to the people. That is the beauty of social media. So we are under public scrutiny, and I think in a way it's good. It is good.
Ma'am, you mentioned the volume of data available online, and now we're talking about the power of social media to ensure accountability. But a flip side to this is the rising menace of misinformation and fake news. As someone who's deeply interested in this topic, how do you see the rise of this malaise, the sheer abundance of data? How do you fact check that data, and what can citizens and institutions do to minimize this impact?
Well, if you look at how the misinformation landscape was 4 or 5 years ago in India, nobody actually understood the term. Even the media houses, if you looked at the media reportage then, people would just use the term without actually understanding what exactly it does. What is a flip side of using technology to spread out malicious content through different platforms. But today there is clarity, and I see it as a very good development that people finally understand what misinformation is and what misinformation can do. And the second thing, which is answering the second part of your question, is that today almost every citizen tends to act as a fact checker. You see, if you go into Twitter, if somebody posts a picture or a video, with a malicious intention, you can see hundreds of people, coming up with, a statement saying that this is not true, or this is not a true picture, it's a fake picture, or it's a morphed one, or this was not taken in a particular place. People trying to, use their access to information and act as fact checkers. And also the fact checking landscape was also evolving in India. Back in those days, you could hardly name 1 or 2 agencies who were working in the private space to fact check. But today, government agencies are also doing it. There are so many government departments, the moment they realize that a particular piece of information it's baseless and it is creating some sort of a disruption and unrest, they are giving out statements saying that no, this piece of information is not true. So addressing misinformation as a matter of responsibility is slowly entering into our institutional setup, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Amongst the many notable achievements that you've had in a very decorated career in policing, one has been around rescuing children who have been victims of cybercrime. Having had a first-hand experience of dealing with such situations and such incidents, what advice would you leave for our young adults and their parents to ensure that they get a safe and fulfilling online experience?
Responsibility is the key word. Be it the parents, be it the teachers, or be it the kid himself or herself who are in the digital space. See, I understand that it comes with a certain challenge, because not every parent will be good at understanding the technology and and the dark spaces the kid can potentially get into. So that challenge is also there. But at least we have a very vibrant parenting system in India, right? You can always use that privilege to make sure that your kid doesn't get into darker spaces. And also now I keep talking about collective responsibility. With the changing lifestyles, the families have become nuclear, and the kids spend a lot of time alone or a lot of time away from the parents and the families. So wherever the kid is, be it in school or in a play school or any other space, I think that everybody has to come together. We have to feel that sense of responsibility responsibility towards our children, that it is our responsibility to keep a tab on them. You can't just say that there are so many avenues for a kid to go wrong, and there is nothing we can do about it. And today, in a post-pandemic world, even a toddler is exposed to technology. If you have, like I've seen in my families, like my own sister-in-law, if the kid has to eat, she has to give the phone to the kid, otherwise the kid doesn't eat. So that is how things are evolving now. So we have to change our mindset accordingly and make sure that nobody should come and tell you that you have a responsibility towards the safety of your kid when he or she is online. We have to teach ourselves. I think as Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. Internet has given us a lot of power, power to learn, power to see the world, power to, I can be here and travel probably, the metaverse we were chatting about. It's that line, that fine line between physical and virtual world, it's just slowly just vanishing. So how are you going to deal with it? You have to be responsible, teach yourself. You don't understand technology, make an effort to teach for the sake of your kid, for the sake of the safety of your kid.
Exactly, ma'am. The whole transition from the phase of beta to meta has been so fast-paced that the only tool to deal with this is maybe digital awareness and digital literacy to make sure that citizens know their do's and don'ts when entering into that virtual space. That brings me to my next question, ma'am. And this is a more forward-looking one, since we've talked about the next generation and their growing dependence on technology. We've seen the simultaneous, in fact, we're going through a phase of simultaneous rise of new technologies. We have blockchain, we have AI, we have deep learning algorithms, we have big data analytics, we have the Internet of Things. Everything is sort of coming together at the same time and leading to what is being also termed as the fourth industrial revolution. How do you see that altering the cybersecurity landscape in the country, and what new threats or challenges will that pose going ahead?
Well, let's just take the example of the latest, trend in the tech space, which is obviously the metaverse. Ever since Facebook made the announcement and the company changed the logo and everything, I'm yet to completely understand the whole metaverse things. But my basic understanding of the concept is that it's a shared virtual world, right? I think metaverse essentially needs creation of a blockchain based platforms. The intention is to create decentralized systems, right? And there is a huge, there is a big clamoring and call for responsible internet. Even tech companies started saying that we need better internet. The first question is, who is going to define what is a better internet? Okay. Now you look at the case of metaverse. Like I said, it's a virtual world. It's a shared virtual world. So it's a convergence of physical, virtual, and augmented reality, right? Where one can experience one can have different experiences in a real-time setting. Okay. Now, if you look at the basic human psychology, we as human beings, I think we are very, very territorial. For example, we live in an apartment complex in a metro city. We don't even want to share the common area with our neighbor. We fight. We have a very, very strong sense of territoriality, boundaries, right? Here, you're talking about something which is beyond human cognition, moving from physical space into virtual space. To do what? What is your ultimate aim? And now in the physical space, we have a proper regulatory mechanism which has been evolving over many, many years. Laws and regulations did not happen overnight. It took many years for us to develop the systems, regulatory systems. Now we are talking about a decentralized virtual world, and who is going to control it? Look at the sheer volume of it. And what about the data management? Who is going to control over the data? What about your privacy concerns? Through the virtual reality, models, you are getting into a system. What about your privacy? And what about when your rights are violated? What about the kind of crimes it might throw up, and who is going to control it, who is going to detect it, who is going to keep you safe there? So these are all like questions which are never answered. So we just have to wait and watch, but there's no denying of the fact that these new age technologies are going to change our lives for good or bad. But I think we need to keep up with the pace and also be ready for it. I mean, traditionally also, not just in India, in most of the countries, if you look at how we fight crime, I mean, I'm just coming back from technology to crime to give more clarity to what we are talking. We always adopted a very, very reactive model, right? See, when a murder happens, you go and do the investigation after the commission of the offense to find out who killed who. We need a proactive model. You should have an intervention in place which should prevent murders from happening, right? So that is the kind of models that we need. We need an absolutely proactive mechanism, a proactive framework to deal with this new age, technological, transformation to keep us safe. I think I am a police officer and my primary concern will always be safety. It's not so much the technicalities of the new age technologies that keep coming up. So the safety has to be a bigger concern. That is why in the beginning of our chat, I mentioned about this national strategy for cybercrime that the country is working on. I'm told 40% of the work is already over. So we need a system in place. We cannot transfer the power from the hands of the people to the big tech. I'm completely against it. Okay, as long as big tech companies work on a revenue model which is based on the attention of you and me, people, right? I don't think we are mature enough to let go of the responsibilities. It is very important that we have proper mechanism in place. It is very important that we set accountabilities. Okay, platform accountability, big tech accountability, personal accountability, institutional accountability, everything has to revolve around the framework of accountability. That's what I feel.
You very rightly said that when dealing with the cyberspace, the model has to be more proactive than reactive going ahead. This has been a very enriching conversation, ma'am, and this leads me to my last question, that as one of the most stellar women police officers in the country, with a huge following on social media as well, you've become an inspiration to many. What advice would you give to young women who are trying to follow in your footsteps?
I mean, if you want me to give a very generalistic word of advice, I would say as a woman, as a girl, you have every right to learn, to liberate yourself and to support yourself, to be independent and to be part of the system and contribute, do meaningful work for the betterment of people around you. It can be for your own good or for the good of people who are around you in your life. But this one thing that will always keep you in good stead is it's consistent hard work. Today, many of us don't realize that once we achieve something, we kind of get stagnated. We just that the sense of complacency comes in, and especially with the women labor force, when it takes so much of effort, so much of struggle to be part of a workforce, I think it is important that we make it count and we make it comfortable and we leave the space comfortable for millions of women and girls who are looking up to us. So whatever space that you're in, you may be a doctor, a teacher, a police officer, a pilot, an air hostess, or you may be a homemaker. Wherever you are, just make sure that you do so much that the girls or the women who come after you will have it comfortable to pursue their dreams, comfortable to have a career, comfortable to do whatever they like to do. Yeah.
Thank you for a very fascinating conversation, ma'am. It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you for speaking to India Foundation Facebook interview series. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you.